What's up? And welcome in to Under the Hood with me, Jay Hood. Thanks so much for downloading the podcast and watching on YouTube. Please like, share, and subscribe this video and all things we do on Under the Hood. I hope that you're enjoying your summer. We got a lot to talk about here. I took a few days off, but so glad to be back here on YouTube and also on the podcast for Under the Hood. We have a very special guest that we'll have on to talk some baseball. But first, let me tell you about our presenting sponsor, and that is our friends over at, yes, Manscaped, manscaped.com. And I got to tell you about the Lawnmower 4.0. Yes, support for Under the Hood is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in below the waist grooming by hygiene. And ladies, if you have a lady in your life, listen up. Manscaped offers precision engineering tools for you and your man's jewels. And for any women out there that have come across a hairy bush, now you're in luck. Manscaped, the best in men's below the waist grooming, now have launched their fourth generation, the 4.0, for her and for him. Yes, folks, it's Manscaped. I want you to go to manscaped.com and use my code HOOD, my last name HOOD, and save 20% off. It's very simple. You know what you look like below your waist, right? You know what it looks like. Come on. You know what it looks like. I know what it looks like down here. Where? Down here. And you know how it can get a little stinky, how it can get a little bit, you know, tangular down there. That's why you have manscaped.com. I know that there's some people in my circle, friends of mine that have used Manscaped. And they're like, yeah, you know what? That's just a gag gift, but actually it does work out. It's a little bit more, I feel a little bit more free down there. So check it out, manscaped.com 4.0 for men and for women. I think it's very simple with Manscaped because you can give this as a gift to someone or something for yourself. I think there's any question about that. If you've been shaving with the same nut trimmer all your life, the same nut trimmer that you use on your face, that's gross. And ladies, make it right for you as well as them with the Lawnmower 4.0. Again, Hood is my last name, and use that promo code and save 20%. Manscaped.com. It is the spot. Let's talk a little bit about the Bears training camp. But first, I got to tell you about something exciting. First time ever in my career, I'll be part of something really, really special that involves the entire radio station. Of course, you know me from Kap J-Hood weekday mornings at 7 on ESPN 1000 and on the ESPN Chicago app. This is really cool. We, as a station, are going to go to Mandalay Bay September 26th to the 29th in Las Vegas, Nevada. Activities, game tickets, and more. I want you to check this out. Not only the show I do with David Kaplan, but also Carmen Yurko, Waddle and Sylvie, Black and Abdallah, Peggy and Dion, and so many others from the station are going to be in Mandalay Bay. This is all for the Bears in their matchup against the Raiders. I hope that you can be a part of it. You got to go to truefantravel.com. Again, truefantravel.com. The link will be all over my social media, by the way, if you forget that. But truefantravel.com. Go there while we're having our conversation here under the hood, and you can join us. They have packages that are available. You can go with us. I think that's going to be really cool. So check it out. First time ever in my career where it's not just one show, couple shows. It's the entire station uh, that's on the air that will be part of this Mandalay show that's going to take place in Las Vegas, Nevada, September 26th to the 29th. In lieu of the Bears in our matchup against the Raiders, I think that's really fun. So hopefully you'll get a chance to be with us again. TrueFanTravel.com is where you go. As far as the Bears are concerned, a couple other announcements for my show with David Kaplan on Kap and J-Hood. Check the old calendar here. On the 25th and on the 29th of July, we will be out at House Hall doing shows live from House Hall. So if you're going to take your family, if you got a chance to be fortunate enough to take a look at some of the new look Chicago Bears, stop by the table and say what's up to us. We'll be out there our customary 7 to 10 a.m. I think their practices are around 8, 8:30. I think both of them will be. So we'll be on the air while they're practicing, I think the early part of it. But if you can, stop by and check us out. House Hall will be there on this Friday and then on the 29th of July to check out the Bears. And speaking of the Bears, just very briefly, I'm looking forward to the Chicago Bears training camp in the upcoming season for a number of reasons. Number one, I'm looking forward to seeing a couple of the battles that is going to take place. Like, for instance, like what is going to go on with the defensive line. One of the things I've talked a lot about here on ESPN Chicago and here on YouTube is talked a lot about how the defense just did not get the job done. It was not good enough, the defense. They didn't get after the quarterback enough. You have Dio, you've got Grady Jarrett that's on this team as well that can help out Montez Sweat. But I think the position battle is going to be interesting as well. Like Austin Booker, is he a mainstay? I keep hearing all this hype about Dom Robinson, who's been with the team. This will be his fourth year, Dominic Robinson. Yeah, we're going to see whether or not he's going to stick or not. They say that they're high on him. We're going to find out. It's one thing to be athletic. It's another thing to be able to play football and get after the quarterback. So I think that is something that's paramount for this team. I know there's a lot of hype about what's going on with Caleb Williams and what's he going to look like in year two and what the offense is going to look like. But I'm concerned about the defense because I think it's paramount for this defense to be able to make some stops. Too many times the Bears were gashed over the middle, backside the linebackers in front of the secondary, and there were big chunk plays. And I just think that there just wasn't enough pass rush for me. So I look forward to seeing what that looks like. But I offensively speaking with Caleb Williams, I get this a lot. People are asking me about Caleb Williams. And they say, Hoodie, what do you think about Caleb Williams in year two? And everyone compares Caleb Williams to Jaden Daniels of the Washington Commanders. And what I tell you is that I compare Caleb Williams from year one to what we're going to see this year. I don't compare him to other quarterbacks because then you start to get into the trick bag a little bit. This whole thing of, well, this quarterback's better and this quarterback's better. What about Caleb Williams? Will he get better under Ben Johnson? I think that he will be a better quarterback for this upcoming season, but it's not going to be championship level. I don't think that's where the Bears are. I think the Bears are headed there. I'm not sure if you're going to get that in year one. I'm hoping for the Matt Nagy bump. And for those of you that remember the Matt Nagy administration, you recall that with Nagy, right away, the Bears had success. Sometimes you get that with a first-year coach where everybody's excited, their hair's on fire because it's new and fresh. Hopefully, the Bears will get there. But I just think that incrementally, this offense is going to gel because there's so many moving parts, man. There's 2 tight ends and there's 3 or 4 wide receivers, and you're trying to figure out how the running game will be better with a better offensive line with Swift, and then how many running backs they're going to use. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts. The Bears have a lot of talent, but do they have a lot of wins on that roster right off the bat? And we're going to find out if that's going to be the case. But I'm looking forward to being a training camp. I'm going to look at that. I look forward to being around Ozzy Trapillo and some of those guys on that offensive line, the Amagajes. Let's see whether or not that offensive line, especially their backups, can be rotation guys at some point. I look forward to looking at their defensive line as well. Everyone's looking at the fly of the football and whether or not Caleb's going to be great, but the trenches is what I'm very interested in with the Chicago Bears team. What about the baseball with the Cubs and the White Sox? So watching Cubs baseball going into the second half of the season, they have one of the best records in the big leagues. Could you imagine if the Cubs were in last place and languishing and really having a tough time trying to find their footing? It is a very good baseball team, except the Brewers are better. That's the difference. As we talk about this, with an 11-game winning streak, something like that, 10 or 11-game winning streak, the Brewers are just playing hot baseball, and they can't keep that up forever. But I think it is compelling that you have the former Brewers manager, Craig Counsell, did not make the playoffs last year. The Cubs off to a hot start this year, one of the best teams in baseball. Even though they've had their injury issues and their pitching issues, they still have maintained a high level of baseball. The stolen bases, the defense, the on-base percentage, some power flexed by Pete Crow Armstrong and Suzuki and Happ and some of the others on this team. The on-base percentage you get from Nico Horner. It's a very good baseball team. But I think that when you get to the deadline, you're going to find out that the Cubs are going to make some moves, but can they make the move to solidify themselves, not only winning the division, but making some noise in the playoffs? Because for all the Cub fan friends that I know, they look at this Cubs team and they're like, we're not sure. Is there going to be a swoon? I don't think the Cubs are going to go backwards. I think that they are going to maintain themselves as a playoff team this year. And if they don't, remember, this is Jed Hoyer's last season. If the Cubs don't make the playoffs or the Cubs keep sliding in, out of contention, it's going to be tough to make a case for Jed Hoyer to return as the president of the Chicago Cubs. That's just as simple as it can be. Doesn't matter if he's part of that 2016 team. If the Cubs underachieve, how could Tom Ricketts say, "Oh yeah, he's just a good boy. He's good for the team. Let him stay around"? Nope, nope. I think that the Cub fan today demands a better effort from the front office, and there's a lot of talk about Clark and Addison about you know, over there at Wrigley Field about how the Cubs are going to be aggressive and they're in all the conversations. Are they willing to make the big moves, plural, from a pitching standpoint, third base standpoint, whether it's starting pitching or relief pitching or getting a new third baseman to be able to put themselves over the hump? It's an exciting race because I watched that Milwaukee Brewers team. You have to turn around. I think about 20 players. If you met them face to face, you'd have to say, "Turn around. Let me see the back of your uniform so I know who you are." Seriously, the Brewers have been a very, very good team under Pat Murphy. Pat knows how to be able to push the right buttons. Yelich is the man for the Brewers. Christian Yelich, a terrific player. But some of those other guys that they have on that team, they just know how to, again, very similar to the Cubs, strong defensively. They know how to hit the other way. They know situational hitting. They know how to pitch it. They are doing really, really great work for the Milwaukee Brewers. There's no question. So they have some of the same intangibles that the Cubs have. Now, what are the Cubs going to do about it? So I think that's a fascinating race. Just remember, the Brewers were, I think, 9 or 10 games ahead of the Cubs, and they won the division, and the Cubs are out of it. So let's see how this race is able to materialize. I think it's going to be fun to see the Cubs and Brewers. And as far as the White Sox are concerned, so I'm a White Sox fan. The Beatles said the kids are all right. Kids are all right. Off to a nice start out of the All-Star break, sweeping the Pittsburgh Pirates and start off well in their matchup against Tampa, but we know what it is. We know that this team is going to scrape and claw, and it's going to struggle because they don't have enough talent. And the talent they do have, if you're Chris Getz, you probably will trade it to try to get younger assets. But just a base of like Chase Mydroth and watching, some of the other young players like Theo on this team, and I like a lot of the young parts of this team. But as I asked Chris Getz at the beginning of the season, when will you be able to spend money? When's that time? Is that 2029, 2030, 2029, 2028? When's that going to happen? So I'm interested in finding out what that looks like as far as the White Sox are concerned. But I'm pretty happy about some of the young guys that are learning on the job for this White Sox team. Speaking of the White Sox, let me break some more news. So I'm going to be doing a weekly Chicago White Sox podcast on David Kaplan's recap on his YouTube channel. For the rest of the season, I believe that's going to be starting either this week or next week. I'll let you know on my social media. I'll be working with Ryan McGuffey, and we are two diehard White Sox fans, and we will be doing a White Sox podcast on the recap. Now, a lot of that audio is going to be also on Under the Hood. So if you miss it over there on David Kaplan's YouTube and his podcast, you won't miss it because it'll be right here. So if you're a White Sox fan, I'm going to be talking about the White Sox on a weekly basis with Ryan McGuffey. You got the exclusive on that because no one else knows that except ESPN Chicago. And now you know it, that I'll be working with Ryan McGuffey, who's worked with CSN before and has been around for a long time with the Chicago White Sox organization, diehard White Sox fan, great from a digital and television and radio scenario. So look forward to working with Ryan McGuffey weekly, talking about the Chicago White Sox. And you'll be able to hear that audio on our podcast. So that's some breaking news. As I mentioned, we are presented by Manscaped, manscaped.com. Use the promo code HOOD, HOOD, that's my last name, and save 20%. Manscaped.com. Get it for someone. Get it for a loved one. Get it for a loved one. Or for yourself. You know what you look like down there. The difference that this thing makes. Manscaped.com. Promo code HOOD. It's going to be awesome. Make sure you use that. I want to talk about a couple of other things. But first, as I mentioned, we have a guest talking baseball at the end of our podcast here today. I want to talk to you a little about professional wrestling. If you're not a wrestling fan, just hang on. I just want to make a couple of promotions about pro wrestling. For those of you that really know me, you know that I'm hosting several wrestling podcasts. Good Karma Wrestling, GKW. We do that every Thursday on YouTube and also wherever you get your podcast. Good Karma Wrestling. The logo's right there in the right hand corner, just popped up. So we do Good Karma Wrestling. Make sure you subscribe to Good Karma Wrestling. It's right there, GKW, as we do it every Thursday. Also, I'm working with Pro Wrestling Nation. It's a new brand name. It used to be Busted Open. Now it's Pro Wrestling Nation 24/7. If you have SiriusXM, check it out on channel 156 and on the SiriusXM app. I'm on every Sunday morning with Justin LaBar as we break down pro wrestling from the weekend. So make sure that you're with us for that as well. For catch me on Sundays. So 2 wrestling shows, Good Karma Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Nation. Again, brand new name, but it's on SiriusXM channel 156. And we just recently talked about Goldberg's retirement. That was interesting. What's happening with the business of WWE and also All Elite Wrestling. It's hot again. I remember doing wrestling shows on the Score back in the late 90s. It's crazy. I was doing shows after Monday Night Raw and after Monday Night Nitro. Some of you have not watched wrestling or listened to wrestling content since that time, since the Monday Night Wars, where one show was on USA Network, the other was on TNT. They were going after each other head to head on Mondays. Well, it's back with AEW and WWE going back and forth, and all the other independent wrestling shows around the world. Wrestling's hot again, so I hope that you can support me. Or if you know of someone that's a wrestling fan, make sure they check out Good Karma Wrestling and also what I do for Pro Wrestling Nation on SiriusXM. I want to talk about a couple of things that's happened over the last couple of days. Oh my God. So Ozzy Osbourne passed away on the 22nd of July. That's crazy. And you think he was going to outlive us all. He's going to be like a cockroach. He's been everywhere, right? I mean, he sang the 7th inning stretch at Wrigley Field for the Chicago Cubs. I'll never forget that. That was years ago. If you've never seen that, check that out on YouTube. Ozzy Osbourne singing the 7th inning stretch. It was crazy. But my wife was watching the Ozzy Osbourne family show that used to be on. He still was part of a reality show, and she used to watch that religiously. She wasn't into the music, but she knew who Ozzy Osbourne was because of the family, and he passed away. It's amazing how long that he lived and how many smiles he put on people's faces because of his music. So shout out to Ozzy Osbourne. A lot of people are just heartbroken that happened. That's one celebrity death. But then the other one that resonated with me the most was Malcolm Jamal Warner, who passed away because of a swimming accident in Costa Rica. Man, let me tell you, I saw that. I was like, there's no way that's true. And of course, now you go to TMZ to make sure everything is right with the story. And so that's where I saw it. And I was just amazed. Malcolm Jamal Warner meant a lot to me as a teenager. Here's why. So I watched The Cosby Show. That show, and you can correct me, but I believe that show was between 1984 and 92, somewhere in there. I believe it was while I was in grammar school, going into high school, the Cosby Show. It lasted a long time. And Malcolm Jamal Warner, watching him as a kid sit on the bed with Bill Cosby, where Malcolm Jamal Warner playing Theo Huxtable was talking about how his life is going to be made. He's going to be a truck driver, or he's going to be a bus driver, and he was breaking down how he can't wait to move out of the house and live his life. And Cosby's just breaking it down and just talking about the money that's going to cost and where you're going to live and all this other stuff. It's like Theo was the kid that many of us wanted to be. His father was a doctor. His mother was a lawyer. They were well-to-do. African-American families were not portrayed like that on television, but they were. Loving family. It got serious at times because they had real-life situations. There's nothing like Tempest Blesdo just being read the riot act by Claire Huxtable. It's like one of the best scenes ever on The Cosby Show because it was real. You can see how mom was getting after it when Tempest Blesdo is going to Baltimore to a concert without permission, and just the way that Claire went after it, man, it was amazing. But as far as Malcolm Jamal Warner is concerned, like as a kid, I think we're 2 years apart in age when he passed away. And it's like, man, that's who I want to be. I want to be in a family like that, or just want to live life like that, or be able to date women like that, or, graduate and all. It was so many positive depictions of the Cosby Show and the kids on the Cosby Show. I'm like, yep, that's what I want to be. So, not only that, but also Malcolm and Eddie. I think that Malcolm Jamal Warner was so talented. He could have been in a lot of other things that was, front facing, but everyone will remember Malcolm and Eddie, the TV show, the comedy, but also being on the Cosby Show. And that is all I keep reading about with Malcolm Jamal Warner is this hurts, this hurts. I go through it, there's social media like this hurt, this one hurts, this one hurt. Yeah, because people respected this guy. And again, part of my childhood, growing up watching him, and now he's gone. Like it's just amazing. Some of the best die young. There's no question about that. So all the best to him and his family through this very difficult time. Malcolm Jamal Warner and Ozzy Osbourne, back-to-back days. That's just bananas. It really is. Hey, don't forget, guys, to check out Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. Like, share, and subscribe this podcast and on YouTube as well. I appreciate you watching and checking it out. We're going to talk baseball now with Sid from the Barber Chair Network. We'll hear from Sid coming up. I want you to follow him at SYD Slide Park. That's our next guest. Sid Slide Park will be our next guest. And again, from the Barber Chair Network, he's part of the High and Outside podcast. And we'll talk some baseball with him as we get ready for the second half of the season. It's going to be interesting. So it's that National League Central. So we'll talk about that. Don't forget, we are presented by Manscaped, manscaped.com. Use the promo code HOOD and save 20%. As promised, we got Sid from the Barber Chair Network. Check out the High and Outside podcast available when you get your podcasts. It's under the Barber Chair Network. And Sid is with us right here on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. It's my pleasure, sir. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yo, thank you for having me. I've never been asked to come and talk about baseball on anywhere, so this is like so cool to me. Like this is like the dream. Like I'm gonna tell my grandma about this later.
Please give her a call. Yes, please do. That's
Yeah,
only
I
because
am.
you guys do a great job on the High and Outside podcast. I really enjoy the weekly conversation about the game that we all love. I do want to ask you though about the season so far because I think it's filled with parity, and I think that's pretty good for the game. What do you think of the state of the game right now?
Okay, so if we are talking just the product in front of us, let's start there. If what we are talking about, what we're looking at, baseball is so cool right now. I think that we are at a very cool point of global expansion in baseball. While a lot of that does culminate with like the Dodgers, the whole West Coast culture thing, who cares about that, right? More people spending money on baseball, more, fun baseball being played. And as of like last night when I laid my head to rest, the Milwaukee Brewers were the best team in baseball. That was not the case the day before, and that wasn't the case the day before. So there's a lot of parity, like you said, but there's a lot of cool things going on. There's a lot of stars, there's a lot of young guys. But if we look under the hood of all of this, a la your podcast name, we are headed towards a lockout in the worst way possible, and it's bad. It's really bad. I think that Robert Manfred, as great of a job as he's done with the expansion of baseball and everything, I do believe that being the mouthpiece of owners makes it like a very compromising position for that man to be in, and a big part of that is talk of a salary cap. The players aren't doing that. I don't know what the owners are thinking. I don't even think the highest paying owners want to do that. Like it's a non-starter. It's not happening. Cool. But again, if we're just looking at just looking at baseball, as we watch it day to day, baseball is awesome. Like Eugenio Suarez is literally the best hitter or best home run hitter in the league right now. And again, he's like trading spots with Cal Raleigh. And I'm like, sure, Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani will have something to say about that within like the next 72 hours. So everything's really cool. And I'm really enjoying baseball this year for what it is. The future of
Yeah.
baseball, however, it's difficult.
Yeah, well, when we take a look at the great game of baseball, what I think is great, Sid, about this is that when you take a look at the entire landscape, baseball needs to get away from what's a small market and what's a big market. This is not a conversation we talk about the NFL. It's not a
Mhm.
conversation we talk about the NBA very much. It's really about just markets. And so I love that a lot of the great things we see in baseball is happening in the Midwest with the Brewers, with the Cubs, with the Detroit Tigers, where they're jockeying for position of who's the best team in baseball from a one-loss record standpoint. It's not about the coast. It's about everybody involved. The extra wild card helps as well. I'm just wondering about the resurgence when it comes to fans, though. I think that is interesting, depending on which metric that you believe. I don't believe in a lot of those numbers, but I think that when you
Right.
see the numbers from a television standpoint, digital, things seem to be on the upswing for the game. Why do you think that is the case?
I think we are infusing a lot of culture into baseball, and I mean this in the best way possible. So, like, again, let's just look at the biggest markets, not from like a from a rating standpoint or anything like that, but like just some of the things that they do to get in touch with the fans. Like, I know the Dodgers had a One Piece night, they had an anime night, stuff like that. We have the Mets doing like we have league wide pride nights. Like, baseball is becoming more inclusive, and again, I am of this huge belief that baseball is one of those sports that has like an extra duty to it, like just in American history, as Black Americans, as people of color, really. Like, we have to use that game to expand our horizons. We have to use this game to continue to tell the story of Black people, of marginalized cultures, of the people who want to grow the game, because like that's how everything great works. Like, we lay down this history. We have like these times that we tell people about, and we like damn near mythologize, like with the Barry Bonds and everything like that. And like we have a lot of these guys like being invited back to the game. Sammy Sosa was invited back to
Yeah,
Chicago. That's so
yeah,
cool. Like, Barry Bonds is pictured with Rafael Devers. Like, I don't care if you like baseball or not, you know who Barry Bonds is. Like,
yeah,
so it's putting eyes where they need to be. And I think like it's almost the non-offensive way that like you can be a stat nerd in baseball and everyone can still kind of tell you like, actually, I'm just gonna shut up and do what I want, because like sometimes that works.
yeah. I want to ask you about the Chicago National League Ball Club, the Chicago Cubs. So you remember this is a ball club that did not get to the playoffs last year under the first year of Craig Counsell, and now in this season they're off to a terrific start. There's been ebbs and flows, but for the most part, it's been a really solid season for the Cubs. What do you think their shelf life is? As is.
With Kyle Tucker on an expiring contract, their shelf life is next year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, if Kyle Tucker stays, um, obviously you have your centerfold piece, but Kyle Tucker, I think, is going to command somewhere around, or at least start in the 13 years, 500 million range. That feels fair and fair enough for to start for Kyle Tucker. Um, I don't know if Jed Hoyer is gonna, is going to pony up them dollars. I don't know if the Ricketts family is going to pony up those dollars. So, as built, I believe that the window is this year, but like it's a pretty like they have a really really good team this year.
Mm-hmm. So what about for this season though? Because again, bereft of playoff appearances, it's been a while. So what does it look like them versus other teams in the National League? How they stand up as far as the playoffs are concerned, if they get there?
Okay. I think they could sneak into a World Series, honestly.
Hmm.
You said it earlier. You talk about that wild card spot. You talk about that's kind of where you want to be, right? Like the wild card guys, they tend to get there. The Mets got there. The Dodgers are going to be the Dodgers. The Tigers, I'm pretty sure, were the Tigers a wild card spot last year?
Believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Uh,
got in against Cleveland, I believe, in the playoffs last year.
Okay, see,
Yeah.
exactly. The wild card spot is kind of where you want to be. So I think if they can get there, we're talking Padres, Mets, Giants,
Hmm.
Dodgers, Phillies, Cubs. That looks like, and Brewers. That's your NL field. So
Hmm.
it's a crapshoot. Anyone in that group, and let's add the Braves because of Ronald Acuna, are all possible and probable to get there. And that, yeah. So but I do think a sneaky NLCS, I could see that happening depending on how the paths move for the Cubs. But like NLCS definitely as constructed. Um yeah, they're so good. They're so much fun. Seiya Suzuki
Hmm.
got got snubbed for an all-star appearance. There's just so much good going on in Chicago right now. The pitching staff looks good. Like, oh man, they're a fun club to watch.
Yeah, and also, I mean, there is a level of expectation because Craig Counsell is the highest paid manager in the big leagues coming from Milwaukee. Craig wanted to come to Chicago because he felt, well, if I'm winning in a small market, I could definitely win if there's money behind me, right? And so that's why last year was very disappointing. And this year, I think that the Cub fan is still it's not wait and see. It's kind of prove it. I think that based on the roster, but I would just say this, Sid. I think that the reason why baseball is a lot more interesting this year than it has been, say, 5 years ago, and I don't have the numbers to back it up, but just from the eye test and watching these games on a nightly basis, it just comes to like, look, we may not have three or four guys that can hit 35 or 40 bombs, but we got a number of fleas that can give me on base percentage and keep the line moving. And we go back to the days in my day of stolen bases, get them over, get them in. I
Man of
mean,
Steel,
is
R.I.P.
yeah, it's some of those guys. I know that a lot of the baseball fan of today doesn't want to see the bunt or the sacrifice or the hit the other way. But the one thing that you're seeing though is like the way teams are constructed. We got our hairy chested sluggers in the middle, but what we got also is a bunch of guys that can be able to just get on. Pete Crow Armstrong is a perfect example, right? Pete all of a sudden developed the power out of nowhere, but also the element of the speed. When you see Pete Crow Armstrong, and I met him in person, I'm like, wait, you can get 40-40? You? Look at you. You're wiry, thin, fast. It's like it is amazing. So I think that more teams are going to try to build that way. Like, look, we can't get a whole bunch of sluggers, but we can have a well constructed baseball team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the Mets are the perfect example of this. And some people will question how the money's spent or where not. And Steve Cohen has will probably tell you himself that this has been quite the learning experience. That you can't just throw money at baseball, but you do have to actually build, uh, you know, a, a actual team and an actual lineup, and then from there, like insert your big hitters, and that's kind of what the Mets lineup looks like this year, right? So that's why David Stearns, who again comes from the super small market that you're talking about, put some money behind him, and they say, oh yeah, he should be able to do it a little better. That's how a lot of Mets fans are feeling, even though this is only year two. Yeah, this is year two. Year one
Mm-hmm.
was an NLCS. Year two, Juan Soto, with some questionable pitching, but it's the MLB. It's the bigs. It's always going to be questionable pitching when you watch a ton of baseball. Baseball, when you watch a ton of it, is so ugly, except for when it's not. Then it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
Check out the High and Outside podcast with Sid. Follow him at Sid Slide Park. I do have to talk to you about a conversation that you had a couple weeks ago on the podcast, and that is the doldrums of the game. There's a look at the rates in Chicago, and there's a look at Lone Depot Park in Miami. The people in St. Louis that have decided not to show up for games, they boycotted the
Man,
team. So even though we have thrown flowers at the game that we love in baseball, there are some markets that are struggling and some markets that feel like, hey, where's mine? So you had the conversation about the salary cap as far as the floor and the ceiling. I just wonder if you could fast forward through what negotiations may happen. What do you think the end result will be? Because more than likely there'll be a lockout, unfortunately, with all this great good grace. So what do you think, if you could fast forward, what do you think the end result will be salary cap wise?
Ah, man, it's got to be something like a salary floor that they insert in the game, and along with it, they it's probably going to look something, the apron system that the NBA kind of has going, along with like the salary cap stuff that they already had, or the salary not deductions, but like uh slashers for like draft pick compensations and stuff like that. Those will probably be a little harsher, if you're going up. So, it's not as easy to consistently find talent year after year after year. But again, baseball is one of those games where, like we said, if you play by the margins, like, you can find your way into a really good team. So my hope is a salary floor, um, that probably sits somewhere around 170, 180 million dollars. And then, if you go over 300, if you go over like 315, 320 in that area, all right, you probably got to pony up some draft picks. You probably got to pony up some luxury tax money. You probably got to pony up like maybe some national games or something like that. So, something to sweeten the deal, to take away from like how the idea of these bigger markets are like looming over these smaller ones, which again we know is not true. But we can't tell people how to spend that money, unfortunately.
Sid, lastly, and I appreciate your time, I want to talk to you about my trip to Los Angeles. First time I was able to see the Dodger Stadium in person. You think after all these years of doing radio and everything that I would have made my way to Dodger Stadium? Never been there, and I was there this past May, and so I know they're the champs, and I saw them against the Arizona Diamondbacks, and I enjoyed my time. When I wasn't looking at the game, I was looking at the mountains over the in the out in the way, and I'm just like those mountains, that sunset going down those mountains. Like, I understand why people come here, because you can see the sun, you can see the mountains, you can see the people enjoying the game. It's all sunshine, it's all good, right? But you know
Yeah.
what else I noticed about the Dodgers? I think it's strategic. I looked at that lineup and I go, Shohei Ohtani, face of the game. Mookie Betts, one of the top black players in the league. Kike Hernandez, and I went to like Will Smith, and I went to that lineup. I go, there's something for everybody here. And I noticed, I was like, you know what? I don't know. I feel like it's strategic. Maybe it's not, but I just think that you hear the certain sections of the fans at Dodger Stadium, like Kike Hernandez, that's my guy, Otani, and there's plenty of Asian fans there. There's a section of black fans. There's like all over the place rooting for, and I just think that they're all rooting for the Dodgers at the same time. But yet, I just think that somehow the Dodgers are able to put together something that baseball should always strive to be. The best players, sure. The guys that fit your system, sure. But also that melting pot of different backgrounds where everybody could be together. Don't know if you noticed that or not, but I just thought that that was interesting. And I guess
No,
when we talk about the
absolutely,
faces
man.
of the game, yeah, yeah. When we talk about the faces of the game, I think a lot of them are on that Dodger team.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. The Dodgers are, the Dodgers hold a near and dear place in my heart because they will always be like big brother watching. A lot of people say that's the Yankees for the Mets, but I don't really buy into that.
Right, right.
Yeah, right. They're the AL.
You
I
don't
don't
want to hear
care
that.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. I'm worried about the guys in the NL. I'm worried about Philly. I'm worried about Atlanta. I'm worried about the Dodgers. But
yeah,
to their credit, and like you're saying, um, yeah, they built a machine, and to always bring this back to the Mets, Steve Cohen said it himself. The idea is that you want to build the East Coast Dodgers, and we're talking about like the culture, the consistency, the way that people are able to find someone who represents them in this lineup. And yeah, I think the Dodgers do that so well. I think the Mets are working their way towards that, but the way the Dodgers have been able to do it, like, it's, of course it's Shohei Otani, but like it's Freddie Freeman. It's like
yeah,
I said earlier, and it's like you said, it's being a prolific black player in the major leagues, and Mookie Betts, surely. And people always give me grief for this, but like, if Mookie stays healthy, like, all things considered, I truly think that, you start to put him in the same conversation as Ken Griffey Jr., just like, just as a baseball product, not as, an icon. Because backwards hats, obviously, right? The logo, obviously, right? Griffey's, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're never recreating that. Like Ken Griffey, Allen Iverson, we're never doing that again. That's the peak of human sports experience. Don't care. I'll be the 90s lame person. Doesn't matter. 2016, I don't care about the 3-1 comeback. But like all of that, man, the whole of it, like being able to produce
Uh-huh.
something that gives someone everything, that's what baseball is about, baby. And the Dodgers do it so well. But I think the Mets are starting to do it. Francisco Lindor is he's the guy that everyone wants to be. He has a beautiful wife, beautiful children. You have Juan Soto, the cool guy. You have Pete Alonso, the goofy guy. You got Brandon Nimmo, the maybe he is kind of funny, maybe he isn't. You got Jeff McNeil, who's kind of like angry from that movie with all the emotions. Just it's great. You got young Francisco Alvarez, you got Brett Beatty, you got Mark Vientos doing the swaggy V thing. It more players like this are popping up around the league, and it's making it so much easier. Like everyone loves Ellie De La Cruz because they love Joey Votto. Everyone loves Paul Skeens because they love Andrew McCutcheon, but they also love Clemente. And we see these links coming, and I just hope that the owners see how important all of this is to fans, to players, to have this consistent culture and being able to pass this game down so that everyone can see, like, hey, this game is for us. This game is us. This game is we. We're here. We're going to enjoy it.
Um, can I interest you in a Luis Robert for some of your prospects?
Yes, actually, you absolutely
Oh,
can.
well, would you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. If it was my choice, Kevin Parada and probably Ron. Yeah, Kevin Parada and probably Ronnie Mauricio can probably go for Luis Roberts at this point. Not because they've done anything wrong. Like I know Kevin Parada he's coming around this season. He has the highest WRC that he's ever had in his career. In Double A Binghamton. And Ronnie Mauricio, he hits the baseball hard as heck. And I really love those guys, and I think they are going to be positive WAR players. But there's an immediacy for the Mets in center field. Tyron Taylor, love him to death. Every time he does anything positive, I yell, "It's time to call Tyrone." But like, we
Right.
just we need productivity from a bat there, and his numbers are coming around. I'm watching it. There's been a lot of bad defense for the White Sox this year, and there's been a lot of unlucky hitting for him this year. So I think he could be a super viable person for the trade deadline for the Mets specifically.
Yeah, for those of you listening on the podcast, Sid is wearing a Mets hat. He is a diehard Mets fan. I'm just trying to move on with Luis Robert. I understand, like, we can't win with him, and so because our future's bright, but you got to kind of squint to see it. Got to really, because at the end of the line, then you see, oh yes, new ownership's happening between now and 2030. So I can't really see it now. So for Luis Robert, who has gotten started off well here in the second half, I mean, good luck to you. And oh, by the way, let me just point this out too, Sid. He has to start because he's going to sulk on the bench if he's a fourth outfielder. So
Oh,
make
that's
that
fine.
happen
We
too.
need a starter. No, we need a starting center fielder. That's exactly
Okay.
what we need. It's the
Okay.
market is him and Cedric Mullins to me. Like that's exactly who
Right.
I want.
Yeah. Like, so right now we're going with Brooks Baldwin or whoever's in center. It's fine. Like, I like the young parts of the White Sox. I have to give Chris Getz and Jesse Barfield's son, yeah, credit for what they're doing in the front office with the White Sox. Because this is a moribund franchise that does not like to spend money. Jerry Reinsdorf is like the old head that says, I'm not going to give you 5 years for pitching. The highest paid player in the history of the team is on the team right now, and Andrew Benintendi at $75 million. That is 1990s economics. So that's why I could see it at the end of the tunnel, but that's after Jerry has stepped down or worse.
Um
And you know what worse is?
I will raise you one because Mets fans were in this position in 2019.
Hmm.
A lot of times, and the negotiation happened in 2018, but Steve Cohen was on the same type of deal until, like we talked about earlier, like before I came on, arbitration. Steve Cohen said, "No, I want the team now," and then he upped the ante for the deal. Um, it's possible. It's probable. I think it's going to happen. Because again, I think these billionaires do not like to be told no, and I don't think they like to be told like they can't, like they have to wait on old money. I don't think that's in their interest right now, especially with how venture capitalism is moving its way into sports. And so like this is all great and dandy, and I think the White Sox will reach, the end of the tunnel, let's say 2028. Let's say new ownership by 2028.
Hopefully, Matt Ishby is listening to this podcast. That's the hope that happens, because that's when there will be a funnel of cash. That the cash, by the way, that Ishby is providing for the team is to bring down debt. And you say, well, what debt? Like from the pandemic and all that. So it's not money that's infused to the ball club yet. It's just for the business side first. So then moving forward, maybe you start to see some middling free agents that can help the White Sox kind of be a more respectable team. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. And the Mets had to go through that as well. They had oh gosh.
Yeah.
They had Sandy running their operations for the longest time. And
Mm-hmm.
they had him running business operations when they moved him away from baseball operations. And I'm yeah, the first premium free agent that the Mets got was Francisco Lindor. Yeah. And that wasn't even a free agent thing. That
True.
was an extension.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the first of the Mets turnaround. And there are good free agents coming up, honestly. Like especially with post lockout. I'm pretty sure people will be biting at the chops to spend money at what should be a new salary agreement. And Scott Boris, if you're listening, because God knows how far these podcasts reach, please stay in good graces with Steve Cohen. Like we're all friends of the program, man.
Don't forget, it is the High and Outside podcast. That's where you can find Sid, part of the Barber Chair Network. Sid, I'm glad you spent some time, man. Thanks so much for being part of Under the Hood, and look forward to talking to you again on some baseball conversation.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
All right. We don't forget, we are presented by Manscaped, manscaped.com. There it is right there. Save 20% when you use the promo code HOOD. Don't forget to check me out weekday mornings, 7 to 10 on ESPN Chicago and on the ESPN Chicago app. For Sid, I am J-Hood. Thanks for joining us on Under the Hood with Jonathan Hood. So long, everybody.